Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
That's right, folks. That's right. You're back. We are back. Did you miss us? It's been a long week, I bet. Yeah, a whole week of waiting for the dulcet tones of Joel and Ryan. But we're here. We're here. We are here to serve you. We are here to serve you up some of the best films of last year and some from the year before. But we will get to that. First, we have to introduce ourselves. Welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And you are here for part 2 of the annual. We've done this every year, right?
Nah. Yeah, yes, but never like this. This is becoming like a months long.
That's true.
Believe it or not, we did almost as many movies as this in one show. Go back and listen to that.
I remember that. Yeah,
start of season 2 where I just did whatever it was, 180 movie reviews in one show. It's insanity. It has a really fun energy to it, and it does work still as a viewer's guide, I think, but what we found is that a lot of these there's a couple things. First things first, before we even get into the couple things.
Yes.
Listen to that. Do you hear that, Joel? Listen, really. No fans.
Oh,
the fans were howling on the last episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, were they? Oh,
I'm sorry about that. That was during the refrigerator crisis of 2023.
That's true.
I was just totally scatterbrained and forgot to turn the fans off, and I didn't even notice they were on 2 hours of doing this. So,
and now the fingers crossed is that the new refrigerator will be in time for part 3 of our movie review. Part 3 of our movie review. Hopefully, or else it's going to be Ryan just going, "I've been eating room temperature things for the."
You know what's cool though, that I haven't bought it in a long time, but that ice that you buy like outside the convenience store.
Yeah.
That ice is so much better than the ice that your freezer makes. Oh my God, it's good.
It's so good. Yep.
It makes everything taste really. I'm just going to, from now on, F it. I'm just going to buy that ice. I'm going to buy an ice bin, and I'm just going to dump a 3-pound bag of that in it because it's like, I just forgot.
Yeah.
And when it reminds you, you're like, this is it. This ice really is like it says on the thing. It's high quality ice. They're not lying when they say that.
We got our new refrigerator a few years back. We got one with makes ice right there. So you just put it in the door, and it's really great because we used to go through ice like crazy. We are very much ice in our drinks sort of people, and then we've just gotten used to the regular ice, and then when we've had situations like that where we're like, oh, we'll just use this bag ice, and we're like, dang, I shouldn't feel this strongly about ice, but I do.
I should. Maybe I don't. Maybe it's not. It's not a high priority thing in life, of course, but.
Right, sure, yes.
I do feel strongly that ice, it's that ice outside the convenience store for the win. 2 is hotel machine ice, which is really pretty yummy. And everything else is like, it's not as cool. And okay, so what did I say? 2 things.
2 things.
We don't come back to these movies again. Some of them we do, right? Like Dune and stuff. We're going to come back to that. But but we don't. This is it for these. This is their shot on the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Unless the filmmakers become famous or stuff, there's our chances for us to revisit. But largely in the streaming era, when the stuff's just coming at you we like to take our time with it a little bit to give everything a fair shake. And I think we pretty spoiler free about these new movies. Obviously not completely spoiler free. That's a warning for all these shows, but I don't ruin the big reveals. I don't ruin the big spins. I know what the money moments in a movie are at this point of this stage of analysis that I'm in. So I don't ruin that for you. So it is a good viewer's guide. And the second thing is a little more personal, which is just, we're super busy. I've already watched all these. Let's drag this puppy out so that we can actually do the show every week without thinking up a category or prepping and certainly not watching more stuff, because I flat out can't do that here in the months of January and February. That's why we didn't really say that last week, because we wanted to get off to a faster start, plus Avatar.
Well, here's what I would say. Here also, my take on it also is, when we first did this, when we did the super let's just try to get through 172,000 movies in a 2-hour show, that was more for like and I don't mean this in any sort of derogatory way, but it's kind of like, look at how many movies Ryan has consumed in this calendar year, because that's the kind of people we're still introducing ourselves to people at that point. Now at this, I sort of feel at this juncture where we are at now, this is a chance for us to try to sell you on some movies that you may have missed in the last year. And that now they are available on, whether it's streaming or, what have you. And you can see these, you can, maybe we're going to pique your interest. And, the title of a movie, often the title of the movie will not tell you what kind of movie it is. And so this is a chance for us to hopefully steer you, dear listener, into the
things that you want to see, or to give a pass to the things that you don't want to see. It really is a viewer's guide. That's how I do it.
Right.
I'm not,
and that, and
I'm not
this
trying
episode,
to rip on any of these, because I'm pretty good at avoiding watching things I despise.
Yeah.
Nobody's sending us out to watch whatever.
Sure. Yes, we are not, we're not getting paid for this. We don't get sent out.
But that's the beauty of it. I really do. I watched every one of these with the idea in my mind that I might like it, that there was at least an even chance that I would. And
there you go.
What have we said it before? I like movies, so I'm pretty kind to things as a reviewer, actually, I think.
Right. And as you will soon find out, this
movies
episode,
are hard, man.
Yeah, movies are hard. But
stuff like
this
Grey's
episode,
Anatomy, like, just you got hours and hours and hours to just do the same thing over and over again, and everybody goes on IMDb and they're like 9 stars, but some movie like misses the mark a little with them, and they just hate it. I'm super annoyed by that phenomena. Movies are hard. It's just 2 hours. It's all you have. You've got to do a self-contained thing that's satisfying. I think people dismiss just how tricky that is, and how and they don't even try and see what's worthwhile about them.
Maybe I'm going to throw this out there in hopes of remembering it for a future show, for a Ryan's Video Corner. But I would like to have a discussion sometime about, because of how good and how cinematic television has been able to become over the last 15 years or so, 15, 20 years, how has that changed? And is that one of the reasons why movies don't, it's harder for movies to break through, or where people are super ultra critical where they maybe weren't before? It's because they're used to these massive stories being able to be told over a great length of time and really get to know these characters. And so then when you're trying to get to know a character in the course of a 2-hour a 2-hour film, you're like, well, wait, that just sort of felt rushed, so let's table that. I want to have a discussion about that. And when we'll get the dinosaurs out and have a little Ryan's Video Corner.
We start out with very, very character driven films here in our first category. So
great. Well, let's jump Let's jump right on into it. This is the what are we calling this? Okay, this is the movie show. Okay, I gotta get it clean. This is.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either, but I feel really strongly about it. This is the movie show with Joel and Ryan's movie review of 2022 and a little bit of 2021. There we go.
It was an appropriate stinger at the end of that particular intro, I have to say.
All right,
whatever that was, that bird, that was not celebratory. That thing's going down, right? With that squeal.
It's certainly either dying or about to kill someone. So it works.
So either way, it works.
Yep. All right. First movie up is that movie where the guy who is like a children's magician, and he captures Obi-Wan Kenobi and keeps him in a basement. And wait, no, that's a different. No, this is Raymond and Ray. This is Ewan McGregor and Ethan Hawke playing half brothers. Half brothers Raymond and Ray reunite when their estranged father dies and discover that his final wish was for them to dig his grave. Together, they process who they become as men, both because of their father and in spite of him.
Intimate little people movie on Apple TV that no one is going to watch, but despite the star power, you can really feel that Ewan and Ethan are great together, because they don't have a great screen like brotherly chemistry. It's quite the opposite. They're completely at odds. They're totally different. They're trying to go through this. They're both trying to cope with feelings about a late father that neither of them likes for various different reasons.
Yeah.
But when Ewan McGregor's character comes to Ethan's house at late one night and asks him to come with him to the funeral, he steps up and does it, and they hit the road together. And the reason I liked it was because this kind of thing is it's usually overcooked in a way that this movie isn't. Like this is really you really just can see the appeal. Ethan Hawke doesn't do just anything. He tries to get himself in this or that sort of high profile thing just to keep the money coming in, I'm sure, and also to keep his profile as an actor high. But he's a guy who makes really, really odd choices. Ewan, a little different, although kind of the same. Did anybody know there was a Ewan McGregor movie where he played Jesus coming out of the desert at the end of his trials with Satan a few years back? I mean, nobody knows about that movie.
Nobody knows about that movie.
It's really good. There was a few more people know about it than used to, because there was a story. There was a picture of him like on the poster or the DVD cover, and somebody gave it to their mom in a frame as an actual picture of Jesus. And then the joke was it was a picture of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they told their mom it was Jesus, but that wasn't quite right. He was actually playing Jesus in the movie. It's kind of funny. That's a fun prank to play on people.
Yeah,
and hey,
there you go.
Might as well, if you're going to hang Jesus on your wall and nobody knows what he looks like, you might as well be a picture of Ewan McGregor. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. I don't find the sacrilege in that myself. But he did. So he does a lot of little things that you guys are not on your radar at all. And this is another one of them. He's great in it, and it's got a really interesting supporting cast too. What's the name of the actress? Mirabelle.
Come on, mouse. There we go.
Spanish actress.
Mm-hmm. Mirabelle Verdú.
She's very famously plays the housekeeper in Pan's Labyrinth. She's a genius actor. She gets to really, if anyone in this movie gets to just be goofy and just be provocative, it's her, and that's fun to watch. But it's really about these guys struggling with very real things, and it's very slice of life, and it's going to bore a lot of people because there's not a lot of histrionics, and when there is, it's sloppy and sad like real life is, you know what I mean? But I thought it was pretty cool. I really thought it was pretty cool. It's not that they don't make these anymore. It's that it's hard to make them this good, and I thought it was pretty good. So
yeah, you know, and it's again, you're talking about a movie that is about the complex relationship between fathers and sons, and as someone who has a complex relationship with his father, it's like. Boy, you know, in fact, my brother and I, both. I mean, I love my brother. We did not get along as kids, but boy, the conversations that we have now that we're grown, and there's similarity in the just when we talk about who we are because of our dad and who we are because we actively tried to do, if not the opposite, but tried to take a different path, and it's really it is a really you know, as we all know, and we've talked about on the show, male relationships are complicated, and you know, or I should say relationships between men and brothers, it can be very complicated, and it's it is something that it has to be an intimate movie. It has to be and if it's not, it's going to completely be false. It's going to completely just be a afternoon movie of the week. So,
well, it has that aspect to it as well.
I mean, you know,
it has that kind of
how do you not? I mean,
simplicity to it. You know, if that makes any sense. It's a very low budget thing. It clearly started with a script, but that's nice change. So I'm endorsing it to the degree that I can, but it's really just Apple TV's got a couple of stars. They place them on the poster. The guy named them the same name, and one has to go by Ray and the other has to go by Raymond.
Right.
So they can even tell each other apart. And of course that didn't help. And people got confused who was what.
Right.
And they spend the whole movie aspect alone just follows them around. Something their dad did before they could even have an original thought of their own just screwed them.
He saddled them with this. All right.
So it has that meaning right in the title, the frustrations that they go through.
All right. Next up, let's move on to everybody's favorite bohunk, Channing. I don't know. That's a bad transition. Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum in yeah. No, I'm not proud of it. That was not a good that was not a good.
He is he's pretty hunky, let's face it. And he knows it.
He's very hunky and he knows it. He is very hunky, but that's no excuse for me on a show that bears my name and yours to use the phrase bohunk.
Everyone's favorite.
I apologize to the ears of everyone on this. All right. Well, Channing Tatum and a dog in a movie called Dog. Two former Army Rangers are paired against their will on the road trip of a lifetime. Briggs, Channing Tatum, and Lulu, a Belgian Malinois, race down the Pacific coast to get to a fellow soldier's funeral on time.
One of the Lulu in this case is one of, I had many, but one of her handlers is having a military funeral, and they're going to that. But what the mission really is to get him down to this facility that handles these dogs, and he's going to be put down because he's
right.
When dogs go through PTSD, we don't. There isn't a lot you can do with them. They can't really be around people, and they absolutely can't be around civilians. So they put them down. They put them out of their misery. And it's, this film takes the tack that, their adventure together and their connection together bring this dog sort of back to the world, like they would have said back in Vietnam. And that is very touching when you see that happen. But the reality we have to face is it is a kindness when they choose to let go of these animals when they've really been through the horrors of war. And of course, one of my favorite movies from a few years back. We talked about it in our dogs episode, Megan Levy. I think that's the greatest military dog movie I think you'll ever see. It's maybe my favorite dog movie of all time. It's hard to explain how much I love that movie. So this treads on a lot of the same ground to nowhere near as authentic, way as that film does. That film was based on a true story, very dramatized true story, but a true story.
True story.
An incredible true story nonetheless. This film, while not being anchored to a true story, is able to turn on the weep machines and push, you know what I mean? And push the awe button, like just constantly. That said, really earnest performance by Channing, who mostly has to interact with an animal, 3 different Lulus, I believe, in the film. And that's great. And the story is touching and moving. Like but it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain what I don't like about it. I don't want to. It's such a nice film, and this was a film that wasn't supposed to be a big movie, and it really it wasn't like a huge movie. It wasn't Multiverse of Madness or anything, but this was a big hit in the theater and a surprise hit.
And it was and I couldn't tell you if it was a hit because it got a big ad push, or did it get a big ad push because people were starting
word
to see
of mouth
it.
And everything was working. It's easy Hollywood sentimental film about a dog and a soldier. A lot of blue collar humor, a lot of trips to different bars and stuff, and a lot of that sort of stuff. A lot of I'm teasing you by convincing I'm teasing you by like saying that you're gay, stuff that I don't see in a lot of movies anymore that I think is stupid. There's a lot of that in this because it's very masculine, as you'd imagine, but
sure,
it's well done. I mean, it's not. I get the appeal. I really do. I sat down. I love a good dog story. I really do. I love dogs. So the dogs in this film are fantastic because they got a lot of heavy lifting. Because Channing is not, as a character, he's not an open book emotionally.
Right.
So the dog really is doing most of that work, and that works. And that's a little bit of a movie miracle. So I don't want to be too hard on it just because I don't think a lot of it, but I absolutely see why people loved it. And if you're on the hedge, I mean, I'd say go for it. It's not a waste of your time. It passes the time very, very pleasantly. There's lots of humor in it too, as you can imagine.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well,
my mom and dad loved it.
Sure. Well, there you go.
They say hi, Joel, by the way.
Oh, hi, Mom, Dad.
They don't listen to the show. They don't care for the hosts.
No, not in this capacity. They like us like when we're like around eating spaghetti.
They like knowing we're out there doing stuff.
I think maybe that's it. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking,
they're very proud of us, but not enough to spend this amount of time with listening to us every week.
Sure. They know what we're doing, and that's good enough. They know that we're out here talking. Well, speaking of bohunks, June Squibb is no. Next up, we have another little Apple original film. This is Justin Timberlake in a movie directed by Fisher Stevens. Let's give Fisher Stevens some love in a movie called Palmer.
Well, we should, because it's an interesting movie. This movie goes way back. Sorry, this was a COVID movie that I just got caught up on, and I thought, well, I didn't talk about it 2 years ago. Well, let's talk about it now. And it helps that it wasn't some big Netflix hit. It's an Apple. It's a well-reviewed Apple TV movie, which is a niche thing for it to be. So let's talk about Palmer and Justin Timberlake and
June
all
Squibb.
that jazz.
Yep.
Yeah, read the thingy.
I love me some June Squibb. Anyway, it's real quick. An ex-convict strikes up a friendship with a boy from a troubled home.
Yeah, and the boy is right out of Free to Be You and Me. He's into dolls, and he's into this girly show that has these flying fairy princess things, and he wants to go to school as one of them for Halloween or just for some dress up day at school. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Up here, I can tell when it's Halloween. Like down in the South where this takes place, it's like Christmas, Halloween, Labor Day. Nobody knows. Doesn't matter. But it's interesting sort of trailer park type of movie. Lots of interesting sort of relationships. An ex-con played by Timberlake. You know, it's hard. Justin Timberlake, he is not a bad actor by any means.
No,
he's quite good,
he's not.
But acting's still sort of a side gig for him. And because of that, whenever we see him in something, it's hard not to think of the music superstar that he is. Like, so when he's got the hat on and he grows his facial hair out and he drives a truck and growls at people, like he's doing all of it the way you're supposed to, but it really is an issue where the star power gets in the way of the performance. Maybe it's just me thinking that, but and part of that is because he disappears into this role. I don't want to say this is the best I've ever seen him, but it's as good as he can be as an actor.
Right.
This guy's got all kinds of problems. He didn't strike up a relationship with this kid. The kid was foisted upon him and the woman who took him in while he was on parole when his mom in the trailer across the way just left, who's a drug addict. And his kid just at home not knowing what to do. And he takes care of him for a little bit, but he's not meant to be a foster parent. He's not even allowed technically to be one in the situation he's in. So there's a lot of weight and pressure on this character for that. The film it's all very natural and believable in the situation, yet the film makes you feel that this is going to go wrong somewhere. Right. For somebody or everybody, it's just going to go wrong in a way that somebody won't be able to recover from, whether it's the kid who's fantastic in it or it's him or whatever.
Yeah.
And the way you get to know somebody that's truly different than you know what I mean? Like that is so organically happens in this movie without them making a big deal out of it, because it is a big deal. It's everything. The nature of this child and this guy, their natures are really, really important. But where the two characters are at odds is not over I don't accept your nature or whatever. One-on-one, we just got to know each other and we're good. It's Palmer's a rough and tumble guy, and he's really, really protective. And this kid's going down a path in this world that he's living in and growing up in that's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for him. And yet, you know how kids are, Joel. Kids are just into what they're into. They're obsessed with what they're obsessed with. You can't. I get that you can. And people have, believe me, kept their true selves inside. A lot of the movies we're talking about this go around sort of include that theme. But this kid hasn't. He knows he's different, but he hasn't figured out yet that you know he just gets so excited and is so enthusiastic and stuff. It's hard to explain. It's a neat film. I really liked Palmer, so I decided, well, I'll talk about it even though it's old. Normally, I just I missed it. Y'all probably know how awesome it is. It got really, really well reviewed film. I don't know if it's some
it's very well received. It was very well received.
It's really good. And Fisher Stevens, hats off to him.
Got lots of very good reviews, including a good review from Gordon 11.
What'd he say?
Okay. At the danger of making this a Gordon 11 show. The headline
Why
is
not? Why
I guess
not?
The headline is very engaging. And he says, this is an engaging film about a felon and a boy who's different. The characters are developed and makes you care about them a lot. So
engaging.
Thank you, Gordon.
No, thanks, Gordon. We might be teasing him for his signature style of writing reviews, but he pretty much nails it, and he and I agree about 90% of the time. So anytime you want to read Gordon's reviews, by all means, get him on the show. And listen, hopefully we just don't have to pay him residuals or anything.
I should reach out to this person. I mean, he's literally reviewed let's his badge here. He's reviewed over 5,000 movies on IMDb. He's been an IMDb member for 22 years. So good old Gordon. Let's move on from Palmer to
we tease him a little, but I love his reviews. I really love it.
We tease because he does have that intrigue.
He just
the first time I read it. The first time I read his reviews, boy, that was great. Anyway, let's go to the whimsical world of Bergman Island. A couple retreat to the island that inspired Ingmar Bergman to write screenplays for their upcoming films when the lines between reality and fiction start to blur.
My favorite line in Bergman Island, because I'm not a big Bergman fan. Sorry, I'm dodging the stuff you cinematic people are throwing at me right now. I mean, I am and I am not. It's hard to explain. I have a real appreciation for what he is and stuff, but I can't. There's a line in it. It comes late in the film, so spoiler alert, I guess, for Bergman Island. But with this guy it's too complicated to explain his role in the thing. But he says, he's basically these couple are on Bergman Island because they love Bergman and they're doing the tour and they're looking at all the places he wrote this or did that, or that they shot this or that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy says to him, this guy who's not there for that reason says, but knows Bergman can't not where he's at. And he says that, there's more out there than just what's up your own ass is what he says. And to me that sums up Bergman's storytelling style pretty well, actually, at least the part that alienates me from it. There is more to life than what's up your own ass. And yet, a lot of our celebrated filmmakers, like they do tell the same story over and over and over again. Maybe not in the same way or the details change, but a lot of my favorite filmmakers do that. I think Bergman just goes back a little ways, and it's a little tougher for me to. There's not a single film of his I can fully wrap my arms around. But you don't need to know anything about Bergman to enjoy this movie, which is really, really nice. So it's a little clever trick. And another thing I found out about Bergman Island that kind of amazed me was that. I can't remember the actor who they had cast that had to drop out right as COVID was about to hit.
I mean, it was originally Greta Gerwig and John Turturro, and then Gerwig dropped out and got replaced by the person who's playing it. Her name is Vicky Krieps.
Yeah, Vicky, she's a really good actor.
Yeah, and then it was supposed to be Owen Wilson, and then Owen Wilson had to drop out. And
so they shot the entire movie with Vicky Krieps, all her scenes, and then
anything that was
Tim Roth, who shot all his scenes like a year later.
Yep,
weird.
Yep,
that's weird. And when I wish I probably shouldn't have told you that, except that's a fascinating thing to know about it. And when I was watching it, I couldn't get my mind off of that. Like, well, this is a year later, and that's a year later. Mm-hmm. Well, you can see how they did this, and boy, she's outdoors a lot, and he's indoors a lot. And whenever he's outdoors, they're not together. Like, there was just all this stuff where I kept thinking, well, that's weird.
Yep.
It's an intellectual thing about two intellectuals experiencing an intellectual type vacation about a very up his own ass filmmaker, and I don't know how many people that's going to appeal to, but it's very clever and interesting. If there's anything bad about it from a conventional sense, I would just say that there's not much happening in it. It really is what it sounds like. There's no other shoe that's about to drop. There's no scandal that's going to happen. There's no thing that would normally compel you to make the story. It's the clever idea in and of itself, and it really is these people and how they're inspired by this stuff to sort of deal with their own internal issues. And I found it pretty interesting. Matter of fact, I was stunned how interesting I found it. So that's why it's here, but it's not for everybody. But if you consider yourself an intellectual, I mean, honestly, some people do, some people don't. I don't consider myself an intellectual. I wish I was. Sometimes when I bump into the right sort, I'm always like, man, I wish I was as smart as that. And I have an analytical mind, but it's not awesome, compared to actually.
Here's what I'll say. I'm told, I don't ever believe that I'm an intellectual, but I'm told that I'm an intellectual, and maybe that's what makes me an intellectual.
I think that's who this is for. It's for really smart people who want to watch something really smart and don't care if it's not super emotionally engaging, because it isn't. It just isn't that. That's not what it's meant to be. It's got a fun disco in it. Cool disco scene.
There you go. Well,
something.
That's worth something. Yeah. All right, let's move on to another Tom Burke sighting. Tom Burke, who
I love Tom Burke.
He's awesome. Well, he's back with Ruth Wilson in True Things.
Yeah, which is Tom Burke's great in True Things because he gets what his part is. That's True Things is all Ruth Wilson's. It's the Ruth Wilson show. She just plays a mousy sort of English woman who works in a civil servant job. She comes late too much and she gets in trouble for that, but she basically does an okay job and kind of wanders emptily through life. The poster is fantastic. It's of her wearing this dress that's the same pattern as the wallpaper behind her. So she's just barely there. And that's the kind of person we're talking about. And then all of a sudden, this another ex-convict shows up in her office, asks her out for a date. She figures, what the hell? She gets wrapped up in this guy's life. And of course, and everything falls apart because of it. But it's not one of those movies where the everything is like it's not like a crime drama or anything. This is again, it's like all these films. It's this very intimate, simple story about a very, very real person, much more real than we're used to seeing in our cinema. And the way her life falls apart, it happens in a very real way. It's not a suspense thriller, or I had to put it in that category. She doesn't fall for this guy very easily either. She's very cautious with herself about him, but her interactions with him just change her. She's not a satisfied person. It's almost like she's been waiting for something to come along to be an excuse to act out a little bit. That tracks. And then she can, although the relationships just isn't a good one really either. So how do you navigate that? And then where are you at the end of the story? Tom Burke's fantastic in it, but he's one of those characters where he just the camera turns and then he just appears there. He's like one of those magical creatures. And even though he's bad news from the get-go, he's not that bad. He's just a really worthless boyfriend. Yeah. Okay. He's the kind of guy who, shows up and then you have a big fight and then you make up and then he's got to go. And, can he use your car? Sure. And then the car is just gone for 14 days until you see him again and you had to go find him. And then you're like, where's the car? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's what so-and-so did. And then he's like, why are you hounding me about it? Yeah, exactly. I thought we talked about this. You said it was okay to take the car. Tom Burke in a really small role that could be totally obnoxious is dazzling. And Ruth Wilson is Ruth Wilson. I mean, what else is there to say about her? She's so effing good at everything she touches. And this part had to appeal because she's usually out in the high 80s as far as melodrama and as far as big performances go. And she's great at that stuff. But this is a tiny little, very internalized performance, and she's just fantastic in it. And so I again, hard to recommend this because it's not really trying to entertain you. None of these films in this category are. They don't.
Now, this
care.
Isn't.
They don't care if you're watching. It's like they're happening anyway. Watch or don't watch. You don't care.
Interesting. Here, would you agree with? Now, this isn't Gordon, but this this headline. I'm not going to read the review, but the headline it intrigued me. Best consumed if you have life experience. I don't even know what that means. Yeah,
what it sounds like to me is the teenagers are going to hate it, and I would totally agree with that. It's an adult movie, no doubt. But I haven't had any of those experiences. I mean, I don't know. I know what it's like to get reamed out by my boss over being late, and I know what it is to have a friend who I really need in my life, who still annoys me and is overprotective of me or whatever. Like, I get all that. So you do want to live a little to like it, but that alone won't be enough.
Right.
You got to like this kind of weird, intimate little thing in the first place to like it. So,
all right. Next up is a movie that is solidly on my I should get around to watching this because it has like so many of my favorite performers: Ralph Fiennes, Jessica Chastain, Matt Smith. It's The Forgiven.
The Forgiven is a film that needs you to watch it because of the actors that are in it, and I gotta tell you that The Forgiven. Wow, I forgot I was even going to be talking about this one.
Well, here, let me read. While you collect your thoughts. The plot synopsis is: a fatal accident disrupts the lives of Western visitors to a lavish party in the high Atlas Mountains of Morocco and will ultimately lead to a reckoning in the desert.
Matt Smith plays a gajillionaire who one of his cottages is out in the middle of what country are they in?
Morocco.
So not entirely, but basically an Arab country. Although a very Western friendly one, it's still weird that that an English guy would just want to live there. It's just unusual. And of course, he doesn't live in Morocco at all. His house is made of Moroccan architecture, and his servants are all Moroccan. But he just brought civilization with him out in the desert, essentially. And one of his friends from school, I think they all went to school together, is the thing. So is it like The Big Chill in that way? No. Ralph Fiennes plays unforgivably crass and cynical bastard. Like, you just hate his guts as soon as he comes on the screen. And Jessica Chastain, his wife, plays someone who's not much better. She's really only better by direct comparison to him because she at least finds his lack of diplomacy or censorship annoying, like we do. Because of this fatal incident that happened. I guess I won't really just get into what that is, but their weekend in the Moroccan desert take two radically different paths. One of them has to go off and deal with this thing. It didn't have to do it because it was an accident, a fatal accident, but it really was an accident. But it's considered the right thing to do culturally where he is. And so that's a sojourn. That's a weird journey into a place that these people never thought that they would be. And the other person's journey is much more superficial and
absorbed.
What's the word I use all the time? I'm not it is self-absorbed, that's right, but there's a great word for it. I'm not
aggrandizing.
yeah, that works too. Not
selfish.
Yes, very, very selfish.
I'm no help at this point.
No, you're all correct. That's just not what I was thinking. It self-indulgent. Woof. Was it worth it?
Oh, I get you.
Hey, audience, you decide if that last 40 seconds was worth it to get to the right word, but it is indulgent, self-indulgent. The whole party is meant for people to indulge themselves. There's lots of funny bits of humor. Again, if you're really smart, I don't know, you want to hang out in the desert with a bunch of rich people. I mean, I found this. Matter of fact, halfway through this movie, is like, this movie just disgusts me. What is this movie? I hate this. Like, I hate being around these people. But it also surprised me mightily, and I'm not used to being surprised. It's not a formula film, and I recommended it to another person who likes the same kind of movies as me, and he thought it was awesome. So there's an audience for it out there, but it's a film that comes with a big warning stamp. Just dark cynicism, and where it isn't that, it is horrifically tragic and awful. So that's what you're in for, a horrifically tragic, awful sandwich with a super darkly cynical and evilly comic, bread or whatever you put on the outside. Maybe it's a roll, maybe a croissant in this case.
All right. Well, I will be watching it because I love them. Anyway, next up is Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. Or is it Leo Grande?
I don't know.
I haven't seen
I watched the whole thing, but it was a while back. It was during Thanksgiving break. So, and I don't think they say Leo's last name very often. Sure. Leo Grande, let's say, is what it is.
There you go. Sure.
It's a nom de plume for a male gigolo. And I guess I'll let you read the synopsis.
Nancy Stokes, Emma Thompson, is a retired school teacher, and she's yearning for some adventure and some sex. And she has a plan which involves hiring a young sex worker named Leo Grande. This
is a play, basically. This is a one set. I guess it's 3 sets technically, but it's a hotel room that they meet in regularly. That's where the whole thing happens. So just be warned, it's not stagey. It feels very real and very, you know what I mean? But it's a one location film, and it's an episodic one location film. So very much like a play to me. But again, this category is called On the Road to and From Recovery, and it really is about people finding their way back to a self-realization that brings them back to where they want to be in life, or going way the other way. This is the former, so it's in that way it's a feel-good movie, but these people are really different, and as in any movie that's worth a damn, where a person and a prostitute end up in a complex relationship after they've been business partners in that, it's problematic to say the least. And so that this is too, but again, what's the name of the young man? Obviously Emma Thompson in this role is fantastic. And the sex in this is explicit. It is a movie about a sex worker, and it's stunning how brave that part of the thing is. You've heard me, like, I don't even want to see like boobs as a joke in an 80s comedy. Right. It flips me out and gets me all riled up. But this is what this film is, and it's not shying away from it. It is taking it head on. And so internally, I think that's interesting that that's a part of it. It has to be. And externally, taking a step out of this, being involved in the story because it's a good story. Looking at these performers and how they went about this and how the whole production team and everybody must have. It had to have been a huge deal, the hugest deal about the thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the guy's name who plays Leo?
Daryl. I just had it. Daryl McCormick.
He's been in stuff, but he's relatively unknown compared to Emma Thompson, and he's very much her equal in this performance. He's more linear emotionally than she is. She's such a good actor that she's just so good that she's always doing things a little differently and making a little more different choices. But again, that contrast is what makes the thing sing. It's a very, very good film, but very sexually explicit.
But we could say sex positive. It's very sex positive.
Well, yeah, but I don't think overall it's a positive movie. It's hard to explain.
I just mean like they don't shy away from discussions about sex. Sex isn't something that people should be ashamed of in this film.
Oh, no. Nor is it something that it feels exploitative at all.
Yeah,
but nevertheless explicit. So, yeah, it's not a film about exploitation. It's just these two people very willingly getting together in this way with each other. So, but I feel like you want to know that going in. I don't know how to. It's a complicated film, so I don't know how you sell it. But the people who had this film, is it Amazon that has the exclusive rights, or is it Paramount or something? I can't remember who it is. Right on the poster.
Hulu.
Okay, the other one, the one I didn't say. But okay, Hulu, yeah, like a Fox Searchlight Hulu type project, and it's good. But it's good. Probably these days, you guys, you're not as uptight as me. The sex probably won't bother you. Is this it? They just. You know what I mean? Just two people in a room the whole movie. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what this category is to some degree. There's a bit of scope to a little bit to Bergman Island because they really do go to the place and that place has character. And there's quite a bit of scope to the one we just talked about with Rafe and Jessica.
Yeah, The Forgiven.
Yeah, The Forgiven. It's a pretty generic title, but it fits the project. So, but this is back to what these other ones we're talking about. It's very, very simple and intimately told thing.
Well, very cool. Next up in this category is The Novice. A college freshman joins her university's rowing team and undertakes an obsessive physical and psychological journey to make it to the top varsity boat, no matter the cost.
Okay, I'll just bring him up. He doesn't listen to the show, but a buddy of mine, he's my buddy, even though I don't really know him, and I'm not sure I even know his name. But as a matter of fact, I know that I can't think of it right now. He's the guy who manages the Holiday Station store near where I work, and we give each other movie recommendations. I don't know how this started. I really don't know how it started because I never said, "Oh, I'm super into movies" or something. But it happened, and I find it delightful. And he's recommended a couple cool movies to me, and I recommended this movie to him. And he basically said this movie was Whiplash, except for women on a rowing team. And the next time I saw him, I go, I thought about what you said about The Novice, and I'm like, it is kind of like Whiplash. Except it's a chick on a rowing team, except the antagonist and the protagonist are the same person. That's an important distinction from what Whiplash is, where the torture aspect of the thing is coming from an outside source. Our hero in The Novice is driven to obsession about everything. It's just part of her makeup. There's this fantastic story when she's with a girl that she's dating and they're at a bar or something, and they're telling this story about how she was competing with this guy who was smarter than her in this class, and she just wanted to beat him. just had to beat him at something. But she was never going to be as smart as him. She admits that. No, he's smarter than me. And her girlfriend keeps saying, and then you beat him? And she's like, no. And then she tells another thing, and then you beat him? No. But, and this thing, that pattern like repeats itself 5 or 6 times until finally she gets to a point where she got the same scores. And she spent her whole like junior year of high school obsessing about this and not being social and not doing anything because she just believes she's a person that has to work at stuff to get there. And she joins her college rowing team as a freshman, that's what they're literally called, novices. You joining the team and you're on the team at whatever level we can put you at. But you've never done this before. And that sport in particular, a lot of people aren't on their high school rowing teams because most high schools don't have rowing teams. It's a very, I don't know where they shot it. It feels like it was shot in Canada or something, but it's a very rainy sort of New England upper class college that she's at. And her obsession with making, first team in rowing and just beating her time and killing it completely takes over her life, and in not a healthy way, not a remotely healthy way. Yeah. I don't know if that sounds fun to you. It put me through the ringer. I mean, it really did. And so in that way, I enjoyed the experience of it because I got into it. And because the actor, what's her name? She's a fantastic actor.
I just clicked away from it just to look at another thing real quick. Isabel Furman, who you know as the evil foster child who's not even a child in the Orphan films. We talked about her a little bit back in the Halloween episode because she played an adult in Orphan when she was like 12, and now she's 22 and she's trying to play people who think she's a 12, basically play the exact same character in which she's a completely different person, and she pulls that off. She's a remarkable performer, really, really incredible. The Orphan movies are absolutely corny, melodramatic. They're not even really horror movies. They're more like suspense movies, but they're crazy over the top. And they definitely have their violent moments. But what they really have is that creepy core performance by this kid who's just game to do whatever. I also love Isabel Furman unabashedly in The Hunger Games. She plays I can't remember the name of the character, but super cool Clove, right. Clove's diabolical from District 2, I believe. It's just so little screen time, and she just makes that character come to life. Every second you see her, she's doing something awesome that is going to make everything she does later more meaningful. And it's just a very, very impressive performance to me. So she's the star of this thing. That's why I came to it, because I'm like, ooh, I read the description. It has this pretty crappy online poster, which is just her like in the water or whatever. But there's this brilliant poster of the rowing thing shot from above, and it just looks great. And the description sounded interesting. And Isabel Furman, and for your streaming dollar, it's a good deal. It'll take you on a trip. It's really good deal. I dug it. It is available on Showtime if you have Showtime.
So, again, I don't know if I loved it or whatever, but this was intense. And a lot of these aren't intense. They're very simple and whatever. This is simply told and amazingly edited. Whoever edited this, and the young woman who directed it, I think it's one of her first films directing. Like
Lauren Hadaway.
This team is going to go on and make something of themselves. The filmmaking on display, unlike most of these, where the filmmaking is, to be fair, deliberately taking a back seat to the human story. This film goes for it in a cinematic way, and it nails it.
Let's give credit here, because the credited editors are Lauren Hadaway and Nathan Nugent. So, I mean, this is someone who wrote this, directed it, edited it. This was something that clearly she knew exactly what this movie was supposed to look like.
It's a very small film that cost a handful of nickels, and it just, the amount of love and care that went into the crafting of it is amazing. And so that's I guess secrets out. That's probably why I really loved it, because I love something that's cinematic, and I love, especially these days, I just love something that has style to it. And you got to admit, it's got style.
Yep. Well, speaking of Hunger Games and speaking of small little movies, that
it's not pleasant, though. I mean,
no. Well, yeah. I mean, if it's got that vibe, if it's got the vibe that makes someone think of Whiplash, yeah, it's not.
It's the cinematic equivalent. It's obsession on screen and everything that goes with it. You get to triumph with her every once in a while, but mostly when there's no satisfying you. You'll see.
All right. Well, let's move on to Jennifer Lawrence in Causeway.
We're back to quiet, tiny little films with great big giant movie stars.
Yep. A U.S. soldier suffers a traumatic brain injury while fighting in Afghanistan and struggles to adjust to life back home.
Yeah, I've talked, I think, a fair deal about a lot of these films, and this one makes me sad because I kind of don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's because it just, to get into the plot just isn't the thing at all. And yet it doesn't really have a premise like Ray and Raymond where we can really talk about thematically what it is. This person, it's in a bad place and needs help to find her way back, but she doesn't really want help. So it's all that it's a frustrating exercise in watching somebody who's psychologically complex and maybe doesn't even know why she's doing this or that, do this or that. You know what I mean? It's a really fascinating story. Jennifer Lawrence, really, really good, of course. That's not news. But this kind of thing, she did this deliberately because she wanted to do something very small and she wanted to do a character. You know, she first hit the scene. It wasn't her first movie, but her first film that she was asked to carry was Winter's Bone. And Winter's Bone is the greatest, maybe the greatest Southern Gothic film of all time. It is so good in every way that you would want a movie like that to be. And yet same thing. It's this very small little thing that's very simply done. And that's what Causeway is too. Is there anyone out there who'd have like a word that might perfectly sum this up, Joel? Causeway?
What do you mean? With the word Causeway? Yeah. No, Gordon. No, here's what I was saying. Here with me, I don't know if you saw me chuckle a little bit. There was okay. This hold on. I gotta find it again.
And that was my way of asking you.
No, unfortunately, it was not. It was not Gordon. No. It was somebody else that says. Katniss discovering a strong love for swimming pools.
There you go. Look, if that review sounds like something you would write, you should not watch Causeway.
Yeah, there you go.
That review sounds really trite and annoyingly smug and shitty and dismissive for no reason, then you should watch Causeway. That review really sort of did sum things up for us.
Here's what I will say. It was shot in 185.1, so that gets something.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about. I just scrolled by and I realized we haven't talked about aspect ratio yet in this episode. So
it's shot in the plainest, most common aspect ratio of our day. Maybe not for movies, but it's shot in the same aspect ratio, 1.851, or its cousin 1.781, which is what the shape of your TV is. Unless you still have your TV from 1991, then you're still rocking the Academy ratio, baby. Good job.
There you go. Good on you. All right. Well, let's move on to our final movie in the category of road to and from recovery, and that is The Good House, reuniting Sigourney Weaver and Kevin Kline together.
What were they together?
Ice Storm? Weren't they in? Yeah. Oh God, when you say what were they in together, it makes me question everything I know in life.
Ice Storm. That is correct.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, am I wrong? What am I thinking? It's Jane Austen show all over again.
I just didn't think of this as a I didn't think of this as like a reunion of them from something else.
No. I just know they're paired together again, and that's all I mean in this. Life for a New England realtor, Hildy Good, begins to unravel when she hooks up with an old flame of hers from New York, based on Anne Leary's The Good House.
So Anne Leary wrote a novel. It's nice, segues nicely into our next category. That's a first-person novel. So this movie's interesting. Those of you watching Enola Holmes or something, there was a joke that came out where Enola, what's that actor's name from Stranger Things and all that?
Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, Millie. She made a big joke on when she was doing the press deal for Enola, where she was like, I'm worried when we get back to the final season of Stranger Things that I'm going to start looking at the camera and talking to it. I've been doing that for months, and it just feels like I'll be breaking the fourth wall or whatever. This film uses the same technique, which cinematically is weird. There's a lot of movies that do it. Ferris Bueller, there's all kinds of them. So it's not that weird. You'll adjust, but that makes it a different kind of story. But I think it's a great way to take a first person novel, especially one with an unreliable narrator, and put it on screen. So it's cool. She's a realtor on a little island or whatever, and she's the only realtor really. And so she's got all these problems. She's got a competing realtor that has shown up that she used to mentor. She's got all kinds of other issues. She drinks way too much. There's a really funny interventions. Like, we've all seen a lot of intervention scenes in films, but imagine an intervention scene where the person they're intervening upon can break and look at the camera and tell us what they're thinking. And I mean, that's something new, and it was really, really fun way to experience that scene. But it's a good character movie. She's a very believable character, even though it's very, very theatrical the way she is narrating the thing for us. Klein is fantastic in it, and they do have real chemistry. So obviously
Can I also mention it's because also they were in one of my favorite dumb movies, Dave.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I can't.
And they were really in Dave together.
Yeah. So. It makes sense that they clearly, it's Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver. They're two pretty good actors.
They are, but Sigourney's like Princess of Hollywood, does everything, and Kevin Kline's like, what the hell is he going to do when he shows up kind of actor. So it is. So they've had somewhat different paths, but they're great. Yeah, Dave's fantastic.
I love that movie.
Someday we'll do a Dave deep dive, or go back and listen to our President's episode, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk about President, what's his name?
Bill Mitchell.
I believe Bill was the only Republican president to make our list.
I believe you are correct.
Does that show our bias? Look, it's a 6-star movie, 6 out of 10, based on a probably decent novel that I didn't read. Sigourney Weaver in every scene and talking to the camera gets it a whole nother star, up to 7. It's been so long since we've seen Sigourney in something, because she's been doing Avatar sequels for so long, that just her back. She did a whole bunch of little movies came out this year with Sigourney Weaver in them, or these past couple of years, because finally she's not doing Avatar, and they just start spitting these little 2.5-month projects out one after another. This was one of the best ones, and if you're a fan of her, you got to see it. If you're a fan of Kevin Kline, totally skippable. If you really like, I don't know what to compare it to.
If you love real estate, if you're a big fan of House Hunters,
it's got some of those interesting aspects in it. And it's got a fun cast. Marina Baccarin shows up in it, and a whole bunch of other people. It's got a really good supporting group of people who do a really nice job, this and that. So.
Well, very cool. All right. Well, let's move on to our next category that you so rightfully said. It segues so nicely.
You should be warned, though. It really does look like old people romantic comedy on the poster, and that is not what it is. That is just not what it is. It isn't that. So be a little cautious. Don't go to it for that reason.
Okay.
My advice.
All right. Now we're moving on to our best-selling novel category. And we're
best-selling novels. Woohoo!
Based on the best-selling novel. Some might say ripped from the headline. Ripped from the best-selling novel. I don't know. First up is
I don't know either, Joel. Sometimes I just don't know what you're getting up to over there. Play that eagle screaming again. That was fun.
There it is. All right. Nice. Redeeming Love. Sold into oh boy, this just goes right into it. Sold into prostitution as a child. Angel knows nothing but betrayal. Can her heart ever be mended? Based upon the novel by Francine Rivers. And written partly, and the screenplay was partly written by her as well. So
yeah, and directed by
DJ Caruso.
Yeah, who made Disturbia and Eagle Eye, and he's made a lot of sort of slick Hollywood things that aren't the biggest movies in the world, but aren't small movies either. And he's a very competent director. This movie tricked me. This is a faith-based movie. And because it tricked me, I'm going to bring it. I'm going to drag it onto the show, and I'm going to punish it. And this doesn't happen very often on the movie, so get excited, everybody.
No, here we go.
So Redeeming Love is a terrible movie, and it's super long. And it starts with a woman sold into prostitution, and it has a very sort of Little House on the Prairie feel to it, other than that it's about a prostitute. But don't worry, they just dress like prostitutes. You don't see them doing anything ever. Like they're not engaging with that part of life other than just, saloon prostitution life. And then this guy comes along, and I can't believe this movie is written by a woman. I can't believe a woman would write this, but he comes along and the first thing he does, he goes into the church and he prays to God that the things he wants in life will come to him. And then he goes out, and as he's standing in the street, there's this prostitute walking down the street, clearly a prostitute, with a couple other prostitutes. And he says, "Oh my God, he says to the person next to him, who's that? Or what's her name or whatever." And he tells her, "Oh, that's, I don't know her effing name." And Joel doesn't even have to tell you. It's not important. Not an important part of the story.
I'm sure it's Angel.
Oh, sorry, that's Angel the prostitute.
It's Angel. Yeah. I wonder what a group of prostitutes
and he just smiles
is
from ear to ear and says, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." And of course, he thinks he's just love at first sight with this woman that's a prostitute that he was just praying about, that he would be able to meet up with. And then he goes to her, as a client, but doesn't sleep with her and tries to convince her to go off to get married and live on a farm with him, which I assume they do at some point. That's the redeeming love. So I'm not going to go any further into this stupid movie than that. I'm not against faith-based movies necessarily, but just this premise is that this guy, he didn't need a prostitute. He didn't go to a prostitute, and then fall in love with her, and then want to help her or whatever. He spotted her on the street, and because she was good looking, he decided, that's it, I want that. That's just starting at that point makes everything that comes after completely unacceptable. And I don't know how anyone can't see that. There's a lot of people online who are like, "Oh, this is so romantic," or whatever. Okay, cool. If you like faith-based weepy romance with a period touch to it, the film's super well shot and well made, and the costumes are great, the wagons look good, and the horses behave themselves. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The romantic story with the Western trappings is fine. It's shot by a guy who knows how to make movies. But that's not cool. That's not cool. What you just did there. And then you just barge into her life and just are like, you're coming with me. And then on the third time she tells you no, you get all pissed at her. It's like, this is the guy whose love's going to redeem the prostitute, or is it going to be the other way around? In its defense, it gets a little more complicated than that. Thank God. That we have God to thank. But the rest of this, it's not doing right by God. It's not doing right by romance. It's not doing right by prostitutes. Like, it's just pooping all over everything. And it's like, I can't imagine a dumber, more frustrating, more wrong-headed story to be told. And I own it now. It's over here. So maybe we'll have a contest. And
and the loser gets that movie. Oh,
I'm really good at avoiding movies that I'm gonna hate. And be warned. I'm not really into faith-based stuff where like the fireman learns that family is the most important thing. Like it's not that I don't think that's nice, but they're just really crappy movies. They're really, really badly made. This movie's different. It's really well made, and the story is just absolutely intolerable from the get-go. So the novel that absolutely was a best-selling novel. Millions of copies of this thing was read. It starts there. I mean, that's really the problem. I get why they wanted to make a few pennies out of it, but someday we're going to do not a faith-based show so much, but although there are a couple of faith-based companies involved, that we're going to do like these modern sort of biblical films, because I like biblical movies like a lot, just like I like Roman movies or anything else. I like going back in time to weird places and experiencing exotic locales and all that. And I that time period is ripe with that, as you can imagine, not to mention that the Bible's got a bunch of pretty cool stories in it. But redeeming love, it's faith-based turd city. And
oh boy,
if you guys out there, if anybody watches that stuff, you guys, maybe you don't, maybe this is just howling at the wind, but if there's a good movie that's that style of movie, because even the ones that are just slightly that, what's the one where the girl dies and comes back and has been to heaven is for real, and Jesus is real, and I have him in the trunk or whatever.
God's not dead.
It's so stupid, and I'm really frustrated by them, and I'm frustrated that I got tricked into watching one, and I'm frustrated that if it had just told this story in a halfway decent way that was true to humanity and not just a stupid like evangelical fantasy, then you could have had something here that I even would have liked. So
then here's the thing. I'm scrolling through some of the reviews, praying that Gordon 11 had something to say about it, but it looks like Gordon hasn't gotten to this. Yeah, Gordon was steered clear. But and when you have a faith-based book and you're going to make it into a movie, this is one you're getting. What I'm reading here is, if you don't make it faith-based enough, it's going to piss everybody off.
Yeah.
And if you try to make it appeal to a middle ground, then they're going to hate it. So, So
and then they're for nobody.
The people who want faith, want these stories that just reaffirm their confirmation bias.
Right. The people
they're not going to enjoy this.
Used multiple times in dog, like, ruined the whole thing for them. Mm-hmm. That's who this movie's for. But grow up. That's all I can say. I mean, grow up. If this is the kind of thing it is, and we all watch terrible movies. We all watch stupid movies that pander to our beliefs. Mm-hmm. And so I get it. It's not poor evangelicals are not the only ones that live in their bubble. But grow up. This film is treating you like a poor little baby who just needs to have everything fed to you carefully and have your little cheek and your little dimples wiped carefully after each little spoonful of sugar that you're given, and grow up. I mean, you can't.
Yep.
Nothing good is gonna come of that. And it's not gonna help you connect with people. It's gonna make you just object to everything that's out there. It's just miserable. Yep. I hated it.
Oh, all right. Well, let's move on.
I hated it. And you know what? Michael Landon someplace too, and he's as faith-based as you're gonna find, but he was a good storyteller, and he is rolling over in his grave when you make crap like this.
Right.
That's who this is for. It's people who like that stuff, and what a colossal failure, even on that level.
Well, let's move to somebody that a lot of people do indeed like. Now, am I talking about Ben Affleck, or am I talking about George Clooney? Or am I talking about both of them because they teamed up in this movie called The Tender Bar? And it's about a boy growing up on Long Island. He seeks out father figures among the patrons at his uncle's bar. Okay.
Yeah, and he has an actual father too. Nobody's more a father figure than a father. His father's a DJ, and he's an absolute deadbeat dad and not a very good person. So he's looking for surrogate fathers, and they've got this kind of complicated community, and that's it, really. Coming of age story, sort of in that type of setting. Affleck as the uncle is fantastic. That's the father that this kid needs, but he's not going to be the greatest father either. But he's around, and that makes all the difference. And then this glorious cast of fun characters. There's lots of scenes where people shouting between the dining room and the kitchen, and the house is like crammed full of people, and there's lots of activity and fun trip to the beach that we get to relive again. And during the closing credits, a cool little slice of life drama. George Clooney has never really made a really good movie. Closest he came was his first one, which was the Good Night and Good Luck.
Yeah, Good Night and Good Luck.
But that really is pretty good. But even that, I watched that with my roommate at the time, and she was like, "This is boring."
Oh my God, I loved it.
Did you?
I did.
I liked it too, but it's black and white. It's a little formal. But of course, I like a lot of his movies. I like Leatherheads. Nobody likes that.
I like Leatherheads. Yeah.
Did you? I did. I think you have to understand what kind of movie it is. It's a zany, that's a style of movie that all comedies basically used to be Leatherheads, and Leatherheads takes place kind of in the era when all movies were like that. To me, that's a neat match, but very few people think that was worth the time or effort that was put in to make it. I liked Midnight Sky, a sci-fi movie from a couple of years ago. So, I mean, it's not that I don't like them. I even like Monuments Men, which I think is actually pretty bad, but
yeah, I remember.
But part of me still liked part of it. It wasn't worthless, I guess is what I'm saying. But he's an odd filmmaker, Clooney. For such a crowd-pleasing actor, he's an odd filmmaker. And this film is one of his best films. Certainly, I would definitely say it's his best since Good Night and Good Luck. It's maybe not as good as that. It's a different kind of story. But what's neat about it is that the novel does all the work. Clooney can't derail this with a weird third act, which is a very common trait of his strange films. This one just barrels to a very satisfying emotional conclusion that a good novelist would know he has to have, especially when telling this is a thinly veiled version of my life kind of story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is based on a memoir. Yeah.
But it's good. The memoir is worth telling precisely because it's not much super special about this kid. It really is. It's inviting in that way to us because it's any of us. It's very New York, but other than that, it's great. It's just great working class thing. I saw a similar story last year that I hated, a Ron Howard movie with Glenn Close and Amy Adams, and I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah, because that was J.D. Vance, written by
What a douche
horrible human being.
Offense. I don't mean to, wind somebody down. We were talking about Eddie Redmayne and like my week with Marilyn or whatever. Whoever wrote that novel, what a dipshit. It's just like he wrote this character for himself that is awesome and wise and knows everything and tells us the story. And it's like, who wants to hear a story from this guy who doesn't learn anything and just doesn't even blink when Marilyn Monroe walks into the room? It's a disgustingly stupid and overly simplified story. And so is the one I was just mentioning, which you were about to tell us what it was.
I was not, because I can't remember what it is called, and I'm looking at another thing right now. That one is called. It's.
Are you like reading a Kindle
Ohio.
while we're doing the show, or are you just trying to get
I'm looking up. I'm trying to keep ahead with the other movies that we have coming up and getting things.
I'm also jumping around. I've named 4 different movies when we were supposed to be talking about the Tinder bar.
It's something Ohio.
I feel like we should say what it is.
Yeah, it's something Ohio. Let me just like Glenn Close.
Something about being a redneck, but I can't remember.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's and I think it has Ohio in the title.
I don't think so.
No, Hillbilly Elegy. That's what it is.
Hillbilly Elegy. That's crap. No offense to Ron Howard or any of them. Amy Adams, they're all cool. But I watched that thinking I was going to watch something good, and that story is intolerable. And I guess, as Joel said, I didn't know this, but I guess it's because it's written by somebody who's like
a horrible person. Yeah.
Then I guess well done.
yeah.
Because what Hillbilly Elegy is a horrible person who wrote a self-aggrandizing story about themselves. And in the telling of it, the truth that they're horrible comes out in the course of the movie, even unbeknownst to itself. And that, I guess, does maybe have some value. So good job, Imagine Entertainment, for bringing that bad boy to life. Another best-selling novel, so not totally out of place to mention here.
There you go. All right. Well, let's move on to our next film based on a best-selling novel. This one was highly anticipated, and it is Where the Crawdads Sing.
Of course, I didn't read the novel, so I can't sit here and say if you love the novel, you're going to love the movie. But And this movie was critics hated this movie, and I think they probably
did.
I'm guessing literary critics probably weren't super high on the novel either. But I could be wrong about that. But what I will say is that everything that Redeeming Love gets wrong, this movie pretty much nails. I can see why this would grate on people's nerves, or why people would think this was not distasteful, that's not the right word, but of low taste. It's another Southern Gothic film that is very sentimental and very pandering and very I don't want to say it's cliche because I haven't seen anything quite like it, but this type of character is a thing that largely we've moved on from. But what I liked about it, we liked the film Joe with Nicolas Cage. We liked Mud with Matthew McConaughey. All these weird Southern Gothic multi-generational stories that have these, redneck heroes at the heart of them. This is a film it's the female side of that. There's no gunfight at the end of it, but it's got a lot of danger in it. It has a murder at the heart of it. It's got a trial scene. The young woman who plays the star of the thing is really, really good. And I just
And her name, let's just real quick, Daisy Edgar Jones.
Good actor. And this film has a lot of tricks up its sleeve, and that are if I'm going to be pandered to. I mean, I don't know. I get all the criticisms of it, but I'm kind of like, well, ask, what is it?
Right.
What's it trying to be? It pretty much absolutely nails that. So it is a case of maybe it doesn't live up to the book in this way or that way, but I really do think it's a case of, hey, do you like this kind of story? Did you like this book? You're going to like this movie, because these don't come around very often anymore. it feels like, To Kill a Mockingbird and how it's sort of shot and how it weaves in and out of its plot points. But of course, it's nothing. It's way stupider than that. It's like nothing like that in terms of its meaning. But that a journey into that world, I think, is worthwhile and interesting. And like I say, there's a few surprises along the way, which I really did appreciate, and I really loved. We always love him, but I really love David Strathairn in this movie too. He can do anything. We've seen him play diabolically awful villains, and we've seen him play, absolute sweethearts. This guy's a sad guy, and he's just got a sad soulfulness to him, and it's a perfect role for him. A perfectly huggable role, and I really like him for that. I can't say the same for the two fellas at the heart of the love triangle, whatever, but at least they're a couple of morons. They didn't just see her on the street and decide they were going to marry her on the spot.
Going, oh God,
plan their whole lives around, this movie goes through the dramatic paces of making these relationships superficial and slightly unbelievable as they might be, especially compared to some of these other movies, which the key to them all is when they become believable. This film never becomes believable. It is very entertaining. That is not the worst thing that you can be, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that is going to do it for our based on the incredible novel. And
incredible, literally and figuratively.
Now,
although we got a couple more novels coming up, actually. At least.
Yeah. There's a lot of novels, but this is when for these three things, that was maybe the highlight of their existence is that they come from novels. Let's leave those for later. Let's go let's move on
to the big ending.
World War II. That is where we are at now. Welcome to World War II, everybody. And our first
World War II, it never gets old.
And no, it does not. It is. We continue to mine it for entertainment.
World War I making a big comeback of late, but World War II has a little something to say, and it's step aside, World War I. We can be just as entertaining and fun. That's not really right. Entertaining maybe, fun perhaps not.
The hilarity of World War II. First up, we're actually going to jump back. This is a movie that originally, I believe, came out according to
forever
this.
But it's rolled out.
It's
really slow
rolled out. Yep. So this is a movie called A Call to Spy.
And it's 2019 is when it started showing up at the festivals and stuff. But this is a Call to Spy is an interesting story. This is a one of my favorite filmmakers and actors and is Britt Marling. She's American. She went out to Hollywood. She's cute and sexy and all the things you want to be if you want to be a Hollywood starlet. But she was just through the audition process, she was offered all these terrible things, slasher movies and just dumb stuff. And so what she did to counteract that was she started writing her own movies for herself to star in, which is a pretty audacious thing to do when you're not like a star of any kind yet. And yet those movies turned out to be good. So she's known as much, even though she doesn't even like writing movies. She just wanted to act in movies that didn't suck. So she wrote it for herself. So now that she doesn't have to do that, she writes less and less. But a real collaborative artist and a really, really, really talented actor. Her films aren't for everybody. Again, they're pretty unique. They come from a unique place. And they're very modest in a lot of ways. But another artist who's doing that same thing is the person who wrote and stars in this film. What is her name?
Her name is Sarah Megan Thomas.
This is her second or third movie. I don't know. And this is, even though this is for a World War II movie, this is a very intimate, tiny little movie. Because unlike our next movie, which is also intimate, that movie has a sort of intimate setting. This movie has a pretty broad and adventurous war type setting, and yet it's a very small film, and you feel it. That's one of the things that's a bit of a bummer of it. None of these are big budget films anymore. It's weird. Our World War II films are they tend to be middle budget films, and they tend to have very old and demographic that they skew to in terms of audience. So so they're not for everybody, but they do still make them because there's all kinds of interesting stories to be told here. This story, I'll let Joel read the synopsis.
In the beginning of World War II, with Britain becoming desperate, Churchill orders his new spy agency, SOE, to recruit and train women as spies.
That is based on the incredible true story. I was hoping you would.
Oh, sorry.
Based on the incredible true story.
Dang it, I was slow. I panicked and I didn't know what you were talking about.
The audience doesn't know, and they will never know, Joel, that this is a very special episode of the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan.
Yep.
And that's all I'm going to say. So if you find this, if you feel like we're a little off today,
there's a reason.
Things just aren't quite syncing up the way they normally do. There is a reason, and if you want to know that reason, you can ask us, but we're not going to tell you what it is because that's just a little teaser for you. I hope you feel teased by that.
Mostly again, it serves to remind you, dear listener, that we are but human. If you prick us, we do bleed. If our refrigerator dies, we do eat warm food.
Warm food's the best food anyway. I don't see what's true.
I don't know.
Okay, so back on track.
Yeah, Call to Spy.
It's I don't know what to say. It's women spies. Ooh, wow, you gotta. The war is going so badly. We gotta have the women spying. But it's just written by
things are getting desperate when Churchill has to call in on the women.
Women spies. What's next? Voting.
What's next? Pants.
So now that we've completely skewed this, I'll just say this movie's okay. It's good. I liked it. It tells a familiar spy story. A movie that I really like that's basically about the same thing is God damn it. It's the name of a proper name, so I'm not going to remember what it is. It's a Cate Blanchett movie where she goes to France as a spy.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte Charlotte, maybe?
I know this one too. I'm pulling it up right now just because I can't. Come on, internet. I can't think of it, but yes, it's gonna make me very angry. It is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, not there yet.
Cate Blanchett did 2 movies in the same year that were the names of her character, like the full proper names. I used to get them mixed up. Now I just flat out can't remember what they're called. So I guess that's a slight improvement.
Well, she does have a penchant for doing movies that are named. There's Charlotte Gray, in which she plays Charlotte Gray. There's Veronica Guerin, where she plays Veronica Guerin.
Those are the 2 I was talking about.
Yeah.
Charlotte Gray is the movie I was thinking of, and I can't go any further than that. I'll just say the reason I like Charlotte Gray better is because it has a bit of romance novel to it. That helps. That makes the interesting story palatable, in a way. It makes it an entertainment. And I'm not saying that all World War II movies should be, but if you don't have the budget or the ability to really get into the harsh realities of the thing, it's a challenge to get that done. I love that these guys challenged themselves to do that with this story. I just didn't love this movie very much. Nevertheless, the 3 women, Stana Katic's the other one.
Yeah, and I didn't realize I moved over. Yeah, hold on. We have our main person, Sarah Megan Thomas, Stana Katic, we
talked about,
and Radhika Apte.
Yeah, and she's great in it. They're all 3 of them. It's kind of they're the people in the different places that make move and shake the thing, and they're all 3 women. And like I said, I dug the story. And I really liked that they clearly stuck to the details of the story. which made the thing a bit of a convoluted mess as it comes to an end. And they tried to funnel it into the normal, like I say, normal dramatic arc to make it satisfying, but they don't quite get there. It's still a good film. I look forward. I'll watch more of Sarah
Megan Thomas.
I'll watch more of her films because this one showed that you're telling the right kind of story, you're doing the right kinds of things. She's definitely a good actor that I had not seen in anything else up until that point. So,
whose bluster hasn't been on this list yet?
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. Yep.
We talked about him yesterday in House of Gucci, but basically just name dropped him.
Yep. But let's see. So he is in this next film called American Traitor: The Trial of Axis Sally. This is
that
American.
Name alone, that's that long and has the two titles like that, that should be a warning sign to you. What kind of
and you know what it is?
What?
Based on the incredible true story.
It is. Well, it's World War II at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to actually come to one that's based on complete bullshit.
I'm just saying it's right. I mean, they are. It's on the poster.
Based on the incredible true story.
Yeah. American Traitor: The Trial of Axis
American
Sally.
Traitor is a great name for a movie. I just wish that the trial of it just ruins it.
Yep.
And Axis Sally, it's so loaded and silly. So, anyway, this is also an intimate, tiny little movie. It's her trial, and then we flash back to what she was doing during the war. And I like this movie better because it's a better made movie. No offense, but it just is. It's got a little bit more classic movie making panache behind it. And that's cool, but it also has who plays Sally in this? I can't remember.
Her name is Meadow Williams.
So another actor I wasn't super familiar with. So it's interesting watching.
She hasn't really done much of anything.
She's I don't know. Maybe she's not even very good. You guys will have to be the judge. I thought she did the trick pretty fine. Pacino is obviously he's his defense attorney, who doesn't believe her or believe in her in any way whatsoever, at least to start, which makes things complicated. But it's a lot of cliches. He's got a young guy who really wants to work with a great lawyer, and they have a lot of young guy, old guy debates about the defense. But the story of this woman and why she was doing the things she was doing, she just was a real person, and she went on these radio shows on behalf of the Führer. And she just went to Germany to become a cabaret star, to become a movie star or whatever. And she spoke German. So her whole thing was, that's all I want. I just want to become a star. Hollywood's not working. Here I am. And she did, but for all the wrong reasons. She became a star selling propaganda, anti-American propaganda on the radio waves at night. But it's interesting because the stuff she says is ludicrous, and the situation she was in was completely untenable. She should not obviously have stayed in Berlin when the war started, but she did. That's where she found herself for stupid reasons, and then had to, then you do what you have to do to survive. And in that way, it's interesting. It's a different look at what would you do if you were here? What would you do if you were in this person's place? How much are your principles going to intervene when your whole life is on the line? And it's not so much about, I could sit here and say, well, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for this or that. But when somebody's holding a gun to your head and you're getting scared, it's like, it's hard to know what you're going to do. It's just hard. It's impossible to know. And any one of us who says we do know, she rebelled in all kinds of little ways, according to this movie, and a couple of them got her into real trouble. And real trouble with these sorts of people was a terrible thing. So it's an interesting story, but it's just a little surfacey, superficial. It's a very sort of cliched way to tell it. I hate to say it's cliched, like cliched, period courtroom drama, because Joel and I love courtroom dramas. And you get even the court shows on TV, like they don't go to court very often anymore. Like it's the writers who used to write the I mean, think about it. Like LA Law gave you about 3 trials per week that all basically wrapped themselves up. The really good ones went on for a few episodes, but nobody can do that anymore. Nobody even tries to do it anymore. It's so, in a way, I liked it for that. I like a good courtroom drama, and this had its moments. It had the Hollywood star doing the the cheesy lawyer tricks, during the tricking the jury, surprising people, and saying the opposite of what he should be saying. All that. No, not that. He does the whole "my client is terrible" thing. They're all cliches at this point. That's probably why they don't make them anymore, because it's hard to make a good one, honestly. And this shows how hard it is. It's not very good, but it's not. Yeah. It wasn't trash. I'm not mad at it or anything.
There you go. That is the kind of
the same with the last one. The last one I admire much more than this one.
Sure.
Called The Spy. This one was much more easy as an easy entertainment, and it actually has a pretty high pedigree of actors in it. The recognizable actor list anyway, maybe not the big stars, but it goes deep. And it needs these lots of different roles, because the World War II stuff it involved a lot of different people. But it's not so much her story during World War II, which really could have been a compelling story. The trial is very, very cliched, unfortunately.
Okay. Next up is a movie that I honestly almost watched today, and I'm kicking myself because I would have.
Because it appeared on the list.
I would have looked so good. I would have ended this episode so strong.
Well, we'll see if you still want to watch it after the review, and then we'll know if you did the right thing or not.
It is Operation Mincemeat. Mincemeat. During World War II, 2 intelligence officers use a corpse and false papers to outwit German troops.
It's Matthew McFadden. The first code name he comes up with for this in this little meeting that they're in is Operation Trojan Horse, and I don't remember who it is. I think maybe Charles Dance plays the guy who's like in charge, and he somebody like that anyway, and he's like
Jason Isaacs.
No, Jason Isaacs is. I think it's
Mark. Jason Isaacs, Mark Gaddis. I'm looking at the cast list here.
I would have swore it was Charles Dance.
I'm not seeing. Well, let me go to everybody here. Dance didn't make the.
I guess he's not in it. Well, anyway, the guy at the head of the table. You've seen this kind of scene before, probably. He says, "Well, here's the problem with your stupid thing," and he just rattles off those. And then the last thing he says is, "And it has a code name that even a school child could think of." Operation Trojan Horse. So Operation Mincemeat, which is now pretty famous, that name appears. I mean, you know what movie you're watching, but that name appears well into the movie. This is interesting, very convoluted, very British. Spying from your desk back home sort of film. It's a fraud that they're perpetrating on the enemy to trick the enemy into thinking that the invasion of Sicily is actually going to be an invasion of Greece. And it worked. Spoiler alert, but it worked. And it saved a ton of lives because it worked. Because, again, the same guy who's not Charles Dance, and the scene is like, so what we need to do, everybody knows that Sicily is the entrance to Italy, which is the way we get into Europe, blah, 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 blah. He goes, so and anybody who owns a map of Europe can see that this is the case. Like everybody knows this is what we're doing and where we're coming. So this is an impossible task and it requires impossible subtlety that has to be picked up and interpreted at various degrees along the way. But I loved it. I was enamored with the details of the mission of the con itself. It's really like a con game story more than a war movie, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to con the German brass into thinking something that was obvious at the time and behaving differently because of it. And you can't just You can't just drop a briefcase with a fake invasion of Greece out of an airplane and hope they find it, and then hope that they don't think it's fake. Like what they do something actually very much like that, but it's not where the thing starts. It's every step of the way they had to push it along, and it's just really, really clever. And of course, we were talking about it because friends of the show, Dr. Maz and Dana, they were chit-chatting about it, I think in a thread that we were both involved in, and it was due to the fact that both Mr. Darcy's appear in this film together.
Yes, we did.
And they're in it a good deal of the film together, and they're both effing fantastic British actors. And Matthew, not so much. He kind of, after his appearance as Mr. Darcy, he was not elevated to the role of superstar. He was actually sent to the doghouse to a certain degree and had to climb his way back. But I think due to Succession and the fact that he's been nominated, I think he even won an Emmy for Succession at this point. And that's a worthy Emmy. But it's a surprising one to me because I don't think, even though it's a showy role, I'm surprised that amongst the people on that show that he's the one that gets to take home the Emmy. But he is, and I don't think it's wrong that he is. He's amazing on that show.
Yes, he is a winner.
He's amazing on that show because he's an absolute clown at first. And as the onion gets peeled away and you realize the deep self-hatred and psychosis that are going on with this guy that make him what he is very real and very sad. And that's an extraordinary accomplishment by him. In this is a much easier role for him. He's a soldier whose brother has died. He's trying to do his part, but they won't let him go fight because of some issue that he has. So this is how he's going to serve. And Colin, on the other hand, is a World War I vet who knows what war is all about. And the two of them help each other out, and they're peas in the pod. And then when they're not, they're very much in conflict with each other. The whole team that put Operation Mincemeat together, you learn to care about all of them, actually. It's got all these cameos by these different people at different stages of the story, a lot of recognizable faces, excellent production values. Who directed Operation Mincemeat?
John Madden.
Well, who else? Right? Perfect for him.
Yeah.
It's John Madden. He's the guy who made Shakespeare in Love, right?
Love, Best Marigold Hotel, Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and Captain Corelli's Mandolin, I believe, as well. His other war movie. So it's good, man. Operation Mincemeat's a really, really good British spy movie during World War II. It's not a war movie per se. There's no war action in it, but it's. Well, we do even get Ian Fleming as a character.
Ian Fleming was part of Operation Mincemeat. Yeah,
yes,
so
he was.
Yeah,
I did like that. So somebody titled their review "Operation Everybody Loves Kelly MacDonald."
Who doesn't love Kelly MacDonald?
Who doesn't love?
What do you have a heart of stone? You horrible person who doesn't love her.
No, I just So,
she doesn't. I think she isn't Scottish in this, though. I always prefer Kelly when we get to hear the real deal come out of her mouth. But
sure.
Whatever.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here with our final film in the World War II category.
And our final film of this episode of the movie show with Joel and Ryan.
And of course, this episode of the movie show with Joel and Ryan is
ripped from the headlines.
I don't know. It is Munich, the Edge of War. A British diplomat travels to Munich.
You couldn't just call it Munich.
No. That's been done.
Edge of War, if you drop the, this would have been okay.
Yep. But Munich, the Edge of War. A British diplomat travels to Munich in the run-up to World War II, where a former classmate from his a former classmate of his from Oxford is also en route, but is working for the German government.
Munich, the Edge of War is I wouldn't have put it here if I didn't like it slightly better than Operation Mincemeat, which I liked a lot. So because I'd have flipped them, because why not end on a high note? Joel's getting used to how I sort of do these. Although sometimes I surprise you and put a really piece of garbage at the bottom.
Correct.
I'm talking about you, Jurassic World Dominion, or whatever the F you're called. You're coming. Your day is coming. Someday, maybe in February.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there at some point.
We'll get there. So that's a movie everyone saw and everyone knows that nobody cares what I think about. And here's a movie hardly any of you saw that maybe you will care what I think about. It's possible. So this whole show has been full of those. So hopefully it has been somewhat instructive for you guys. It's the story of the negotiations between Neville Chamberlain and the Nazis about trying everything England could to avoid another world war. And I just caution you every time you watch a story about that, because Neville Chamberlain and the term appeasement are hand in hand. Mm-hmm. Like, just stamp it on his tombstone, because that's what he's known for, appeasing the Nazis. The Nazis are the worst thing that we can think of that happened anywhere for the last 200 years. And he appeased them, so he's bad. But it's just not as simple as that. World War I was devastating, and it was particularly devastating to the people of England, the families in Great Britain. And you just have to understand that when you realize that there was real, not amongst everybody, obviously, but there was real impetus amongst the leadership and the citizenry of the UK to not get involved in what was happening in Europe. And he took that as his mission, and yet he did it in a way like a true diplomat does. He made deals. He, got stuff in writing. I mean, he was just a very clever diplomat in that way. It's played brilliantly. And Jeremy Irons went through a phase in my doghouse for about 10 years where everything he was doing, I was like, what are you doing? This is terrible. Come on, man. You used to be really, really good, and now it's like, this is just garbage. Stop it. And now he's cool. He can come back in, and if he wants to eat my unrefrigerated food, he's welcome to do so alongside me, because he's been really good in a few things. And it's a fantastic role for him, because he's so, no matter what you ask Jeremy to do, he's so aloof and so upper crust and so better than you. I mean, that's what he's always been best at. Even when he plays a real soulful guy or whatever, he's still got that, I know what's right and wrong. And he's got a real presence in this that is fantastic. Our hero, though, is not Neville Chamberlain. Thank God. That would not make for a great movie, no matter how you spin it. It's seen from a lowly, still well-bred, because it's Britain, but a lowly, clerk's point of view, played by George McKay, has done some really, really good stuff this year. Good on you, man. I mean, it's some really good stuff in some really small films. And he has an old college friend who they used to argue about, it's not ancient history. They were just in college a few years ago, 3 years ago or whatever. The two of them and this woman, who by the time we're in our current day is gone, because her principles got her in trouble in Nazi Germany. And you see very much what happened to people when they wouldn't back down. He really not so much believed in the Nazis or what they were saying, but he definitely believed that the Germans got a raw deal at Versailles, and that they didn't feel like being the slaves of Europe, and they wanted to feel prideful about their country, and they wanted to get on the road to economic recovery. And of course, these are all things that the Nazis gave them. I mean, essentially, right. That's where the horrible Hitler had some pretty good ideas stuff has come through over the years, is that from the bottom, the very, very bottom, the dregs of your whole country is a disaster zone, to you're about to rule the whole world in just a few years. That didn't, I don't want to say there were good ideas in there, but I mean, that sort of thing, a lot of people got swept up in that. But of course, by the time this is taking place in the story, it's kind of a spoiler to say so I hate to say it, but I'll just say it. The guy working for Germany knows now. He's woke to what's going on, and and he's got the balls and the wherewithal to do the right thing. And the question is, when the right thing includes things that the people in power don't want to hear, will they listen? And that's sort of the crux of the story. And it's a fantastic, subtle story. It's also based on a novel. You can feel that, and it's based on a novel by a guy who, when I clicked on his name, I realized, first of all, his novels have been made into a lot of movies, and I like almost every single one of the movies that his novels have been made into. We'll say his name in a second when Joel checks it out. But
I have it right here, Robert Harris.
I should have known that. Not no relation.
But Officer
Enigma we've talked about before. That's one for sure. There's a
Fatherland.
That's so good. They're just one after another, really, really good films. This isn't a great film by any means, or you'd have heard about it, whatever, but it's sitting there on Netflix right now. It's just a couple clicks away. And it is a fantastic story. Very, very well told. So I recommend people, if you're interested in this part of history, if you want to give good old Neville Chamberlain a second go, and maybe see what he was like in context. This is a place where you can do that. And, we've spent a long time revisiting Churchill in context and various different things. Chamberlain, obviously not the firebrand that Winston Churchill is, the next prime minister of England, but he was a guy who had a purpose and had a strong mission and really believed strongly that he was doing the right thing. And it's easy to look back. It's easy to look back on all that on hindsight and realize when, now that we have all the information and know that it came out in weird ways. Like the racism was obvious, but genocide wasn't happening yet. Like people didn't really get it.
Yeah.
And people really didn't want to go to war. And the people who did, who acted, are, the people who flew the planes, the people who got off the boat on the beach. I mean, they're all heroes, truly. However flawed people they are, they're all heroes. But the people that were our enemies that tried to do the right thing. I mean, I find those stories absolutely amazing. And of course, if you know your history and know how this story turns out, but it's still a journey worth going on, I think. It's really well done. And Operation Mincemeat's fantastic. So there's a couple of great, if you're a World War II buff, you gotta, they've made a couple of really nice movies quietly over the last couple of years that you should probably check out. And that's with respect to Axis Sally and The Ladies and Call the Spy. It's the other two where it's all a bunch of guys that are better, unfortunately. But you do get Kelly MacDonald. That's cool.
Well, there you go. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this second movies of 2022 and some of 2021. And hey, we even threw one from 2019 in there.
The year or years in review is what you should start
that's
calling
right. The years in review 2022, 21, and then some of 2019.
All right. We've overstayed our welcome, and we're getting sloppy and loopy. So love you guys.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful time. Reach out to us on social media. You know where, if you listen to this show. Enjoy, everybody. Take care. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.